got to talk about these new Patrick Ta eyeshadow duos. Like, these are $42 each. Hey y'all, it's Heather, and we're going to be talking about all of the new Patrick Ta Eye Illusion eyeshadow duos today because I went on Sephora the day they were available. I'm a makeup lover, but let's be real. We do not need to spend $42 on an eyeshadow duo. We do not need to, okay? Like, I think Patrick Ta is an artist. Of course, like, his work is beautiful. He makes some beautiful makeup products. I love reviewing his stuff on my channel. So when I saw these duos launching, I was like, no, I have to buy these. I have to test and see. We're gonna do eye swatches. We're gonna do swatches, comparisons to all different types. I'm gonna pull singles. I'm gonna pull some hot new palettes right now. And I'll be honest, like, these are beautiful shadows. They're great. They're performing beautifully, but we don't need to buy these, okay? Like, if you're looking at them and you're thinking, I'm not buying it, I got you, okay? There's so many options for such lower of a price point. But I'll also go ahead and say, like, listen, we'll talk about it more in depth, but if you like these, if you see them and you're like, that's really beautiful, I like that luxe packaging, I don't have a problem, like, I think they're worth that price point, I want the mirror, I want this, I want that, like, do you? I'm not regretting my purchase, but I just think it's a little outrageous. I think it's a little outrageous. Hopefully I can show you some things that maybe you already have in your stash to get a similar look. Maybe you can like pull some color combos. Hopefully this will be helpful to you. I love makeup. I'm excited to talk about makeup, but before we get into the eye swatches, I want to just let Patrick Ta himself explain his product a little bit.
There has been a lot of conversation around my eyeshadow duos and the pricing, so I wanted to get on here and just talk about the formula. These are not a pressed formula, these are not a cream, these are what you call a slurry. What is so special about this formula to me is that this formula has no filler in it. This is a baked formula and you are getting 100% pearl. When you swatch this, I have yet to be able to find a pearl that looks like this, applies like this, and will stay like this when you put it onto your eyes. That scattered diamond effect on the eye, it just is the most beautiful thing. But with mine, you are getting 4 grams of 100% pearl. I wanted you guys to have a mirror when you were applying these. None of these single eyeshadows comes with a mirror. All of these things drive up the cost. I want the quality of my products to be the best that you can get out there, and this is truly that. This eyeshadow will stand the test of time. The formula will speak for itself. I want you guys to go into Sephora, swatch this on the back of your palm, and see if it compares to many other formulas. There's not many like this on the market.
These are eyeshadow duos, so of course we're gonna put these on the eyes. I want to put every single duo on my eyes so that we can see how the shades work together. I'm gonna use my finger. I'm gonna do a live swatch for y'all. I'll use a brush if needed. I'm gonna throw down an eyeshadow primer, but to really test these, to really give my thoughts and opinions on them, we've got to put them on the eyes. Let's start first with this one right here, the kind of lightest one. This is called We Need Better Lighting. I love Patrick Ta's name. And I'm realizing I wore the wrong top for swatching today, so let me fix my shirt. This is described as a pearl sparkle and a golden sparkle. So I have it on my fingers and we'll just kind of see how they swatch. I don't have any primer or anything on my skin, just like lotion from this morning. And those are really pretty. They look great. I love makeup. I love sparkly makeup. It always makes me happy. But first impression, just swatching, this is my first time touching the shadow. Is it anything that I don't have anything like it? No. I'm gonna put the gold from the duo on the outer like part of my lid, and we'll put the lighter shade on the inner part of my lid. Since they're duos and they're like sold together, I thought it would be fun to kind of eye swatch them together. I don't typically do shadows like that, but I figured with this it made sense. We'll put the white pearl shadow right here on the inner part of my lid. So very similar shades. I'm using an eyeshadow primer that's just a little bit lighter than my skin tone rather than one that's super bright, because I feel that the purpose of these eyeshadow duos is like an easy, effortless look. So instead of going with like a bright eyeshadow primer for intensity, I wanted to go with something that's just like a few shades lighter than my skin tone and kind of get that more effortless look going on, so that if you do decide you want to buy one of these duos, or you want to like shop your stash for maybe some of the things I'm going to show you later on in the comparisons, you can kind of like replicate and see like ways to use these. I'm using a brush just to kind of smooth this out on the inner corner, and it's blending well. I can't really get into every like nook and cranny of my lid with my deep set eyes when I use my fingers, so I love brushes. And you could definitely use like a glitter adhesive, a glitter primer. You could pick these shadows up on a brush. You could then spray your brush that has the shadow on it with a little bit of setting spray or makeup mist. That will all help with intensity. It will help minimize fallout. But for today, I just wanted to go on like a little bit of primer and on with the shadow. I don't want to affect the shadows that much, since, you know, I want to just like talk about these shadows. But I mean, it's pretty, right? Like, definitely has that sparkle, catches the light, but we do have other options. Now we'll swatch the pinky duo. This is called I'm With Her. I love that. And how cute would this be with his like Barbie blush duo thing that he just did. I have that and I'm loving it. But let's swatch. We'll do the pink, the darker pink. Pretty. I feel like it's less intensely sparkly than the other two, but we'll go in with the lighter pink now. That's pretty. Okay, we see it. We see it on my hand. We see. Okay. Now on the eyes, we'll put the darker pink shade out here. So what I like to do with my makeup is kind of put the darker shades on the outer portion of my lid and lighter shades on the inner portion. I just like the way that works for the look I'm going for, my eye shape, just my personal preference. So that's another reason why I'm kind of swatching the shades that way. But there's just a finger swatch on the eye of my pink shade right there. Now you see texture on my lids. It's okay. It's totally normal for a person to have some texture on their skin. I'm 37 years old, so I've got some little crinkles. It's totally okay. That's really pretty though. Like, that's really, really pretty. Let's just use a brush, especially to get right in here, because I want you to really see how these shadows look. I feel like I can see the sparkles over here a bit better. Not glitter. When I'm talking about sparkle, when you hear me say sparkle, I'm not talking about a pressed glitter. I'm talking about sparkly in a shadow. Next, we're gonna use the duo Talk to My Team. That cracks me up. I don't know, these names I just love. So we'll swatch, let me see, where's the light shade? Maybe we can swatch it right here. That's pretty. That has a pinky lean to it. And this shade looks like it's gonna be maybe like a duochrome. I'll put that there. Can you see? It's like a pink to a gold. Okay, you're gonna be able to see that way more on the eyes. I'm gonna put that shade, the deeper shade, on the outer half of my eye. Just like that. I'm just gonna kind of tap it in, try to get right up in there. Cute. And I'll put that lighter shade right here. So this is kind of a pinky gold duo, which is really pretty. I like the fact that we have some duochromes in here. Okay, that's a cute duo. These shades are very similar on the eyes. Like, it's a very subtle gradient, more so than the other two that we've swatched on the eyes so far. I mean, it almost looks like I'm wearing one shadow because it's just a little bit brighter right in here. So if you're looking for one that's very subtle and you kind of like the pinky gold, but you don't like that one that's super pink, maybe this one is the one for you. Our next duo is Do You Know Who I Am? I love it. Okay, we've already established I love it. So these two, we don't really have super different depth levels. So I think maybe the top shade, at least it's looking a little bit darker. But let's see, we'll put that swatch right there. That's very sparkly and very pretty. Let's do this one. Okay. Yeah, I'm like, let me move it around so that you can actually see, but that's pretty. Okay, so this one is just a smidgen, tiny bit deeper. There you go. Okay, this one, like just seeing the swatches like this one's probably the one that I'm most attracted to, like color wise. I'll start with this shade right out here in the outer part of my lid. I'm gonna bring it up. I like that color, but I do have a lot of shadow, so we will see. Let me put that other color right in the middle, or the inner part, not the middle really. Here are those two shades. Do you know who I am? It just cracks me up. That one's really pretty. I feel like I can see the sparkle a lot in this one. So far, this and the first one have been my favorite. Like out of the four, I would say this one is the winner so far. Our last duo is called Still at the Club. So let's swatch and see what we get. Our last and final duo. Why don't I put it kind of right here? Cute. Oh, I like that color. And then this one. Okay, this deeper shade does not have as much shine and sparkle as that lighter shade. We'll put our darker shade right out here. Gonna tap that on. Make sure I really try to work it in. And then, what do we say, our lighter shade, we'll put right here. Okay, this is my favorite duo so far because I like dark shades. Or the one before it. I kind of maybe like the one before it a little more because it had a little more warmth to it. But that's cute. I mean, I need to smooth it out with a brush, but with the finger, still cute. There it is. I just kind of evened it out, spread the shadow around with the brush a little bit. That's pretty. I like the kind of dark. I like the contrast. So this one or the previous one, personal favorites based on color. I like this. I wish all of the shades had this much sparkle. I know it's like a pearl and I know it's like a sparkle, like I get it, but for this price point, you know, like that's what I'm thinking. So I'm really loving this duo. I decided this is the one I'm gonna wear today, the one that we just swatched, Still at the Club. And then I just put a tiny little bit of this kind of white pearl shade, the We Need Better Lighting, on the inner corner with mascara and liner. Everything, of course, will be linked and tagged and all of that stuff down below. But I wanna go into some comparisons now. I have single shadows, and I wanna acknowledge that having them in this beautiful luxe component with a mirror in here, like, oh my gosh, I just gouged a $42 shadow. Like, my fingernail just picked up like $3 worth, but I just want to acknowledge, I know that this packaging, the mirror, like it has a price point. So when I'm showing you single shadows and talking about the cost of that, like I'll keep that in mind. I don't want to just pull from a ton of large palettes because that's not really the concept behind these duos, but I am going to show you some of the new current palettes that have formulas that are comparable. Specifically, I know that Adept, I just did a video on their Vivette palette. Two of the shadows in there have this high pearl formula. Like Adept said, that's what this is called. Like they talked about it. I want to give you some options in the comparisons. I want to swatch. I want you to be able to see everything. Starting off, we're going to compare the We Need Better Lighting shade of the Patrick Ta duo. I'm going to highlight that for you right there so that you can see. I'm going to start at my elbow, and we are going to talk about the Moira Chroma Light Shadow in Fairy Dust. That is that very first swatch you see closest to my elbow. Then I'm going to go into the e.l.f. Fine as Fleck Glitter Eyeshadows. I don't really think the shades or the formulas compare too much, but I know this has been brought up a lot. So right next to the Moira, we have Champagne Showers. This one feels like it looks like the most like the Patrick Ta, whereas the next shade over, it's Glit. does not look like it compares in formula to me at all, but I wanted to compare that. Next, we have the shade Space Cowboy from Urban Decay. Mine is in their Moon Dust palette from last year. I wanted to swatch that out next to these. Then, of course, we have their two Patrick Ta shades. I have a shade from the Issa Maya Industrial 2.0 palette. Now, I didn't want to pull a ton of palettes for this because palettes are expensive. We know this. These shadows work out to be $8.22 a piece as opposed to the 24 of Patrick Ta, and I think that's a beautiful shadow. Not a spot on dupe, but very comparable. I have a couple of ColourPop Super Shock shadows. I have ColourPop Tassel. It is a ultra glitter Super Shock shadow formula. And then closest to my wrist, I have the ColourPop Super Shock shadow in the shade Flower Child. So you can see all these shades swatched out together. Those are my options for you. Everything will be linked in the description box. Next up, I'm going to show you swatch comparisons of I'm With Her from Patrick Ta. So I'm highlighting those so you can see exactly where they are. Starting closest to my elbow, I'm going to show you Clionadh shadows. Clionadh is an independently owned brand. They are hand pressed shadows, okay? They are done by hand. They're gorgeous. The next two shades are the Patrick Ta, I'm With Her. I have Too Faced Heart Eyes. This is their Disco Crush eyeshadow. I actually bought this when they launched it as a concept last year, and yes, it is $30 for a single, and I concluded it is not worth it. Indie all the way. That price point is ridiculous. Next to that, these two shadows are Odin's eyeshadows. I have the shades Olivia and Mia. These are both single shadows, and I love, like, I feel like, are these formulas that I've swatched out here for you all the same? No, but I think you can get some similar effects. The next shades that I swatched are from the Danessa Myricks palette. Now, I do have a full video on this palette from Danessa Myricks, so if you want to check that out, I swatch everything. There are some shades that shift, some shades that sparkle, some shades that don't do either of those things, but are just truly, truly beautiful. So if you're looking for something like this, yes, the Danessa Myricks palette is expensive, but when you break down price per shadow, you're actually getting a better value. Next up, we're going to do the Patrick Ta duo in Talk to My Team. These shades highlighted right here. Starting at my elbow, we're going to do ColourPop Ritz. This is a Super Shock shadow. This formula is actually closer to what I would say the Patrick Ta is. This is one of their Ultra Glitter Super Shocks. We're going to do Adept and Amy collaboration. Adept Cosmetics is an indie brand. Amy is a friend of mine. Beautiful creator collab. This is a high pearl finish palette. Like, they are in the Adept formulas, so do with that what you will, y'all. I'll link it down below. It's an amazing palette. I have the e.l.f., their single shadow, the new one, in the shade White Hot. So you can see that one's really, really pretty too. I think not all of these e.l.f. shades are created equal. I can definitely do a video on that if you want me to. Let me know if you want to see a video on the e.l.f. singles. After that, of course, is the Patrick Ta Talk to My Team. Then I swatched the Moon Dust Quad that Sephora has from Urban Decay this year. I just swatched all four shades together. Again, I have a whole video on this where I'm comparing it to the one from Ulta, so watch that if you want to see more, but I just decided to swatch this whole little quad out here. Then I have two single shadows from Odin's Eye. This is Lily and Modi. This is a Swedish-based indie brand, so if you're living in the EU, a lot easier to get your hands on, so I wanted to point that out. And finally, I have the newest holiday palette from Pat McGrath. Whole video on this. I'm trying not to sound like a broken record, but this Pat McGrath palette, it's really pretty. Now, if you have a ton of Pat McGrath stuff, it's not super unique, and again, a palette is more than these duos from Patrick Ta, but I wanted to include this because when you break down price per shade, and if you're looking at these as not just a duo, it may be helpful to have these palette options. Next up, we're doing Do You Know Who I Am? Of course, I have these swatched for you, but starting at my elbow, we're going to talk about Moira Honey Glow. This is a really beautiful shadow. Moira shadows, seriously underrated, y'all. Seriously underrated. They're so good. Next to that, we have an indie shadow. This is Odin's Eye in the shade Laura. I think this one's a really pretty option. I think it's actually like a little stronger. But then, of course, next to it, we do have the Do You Know Who I Am, which does have really beautiful sparkle. I really like this duo a lot from Patrick Ta. This is one of my favorites out of the ones that I bought. Next to that, though, is ColourPop Your the prize. That one's really pretty. It doesn't have a lot of sparkle though. I pulled it more for the shade. This is an ultra metallic, so formula is not really the same, but I do love ColourPop. I think they make great shadows, and I really love the Super Shock formulas. I wanted to swatch out 2 of the shades from the new Makeup by Mario palette. I do have a full video on that palette. I think it's a really nice palette. Like, I really do. I think there's some really cool formulas. You can see in the swatch, there are sparkle shades. Like, there are sparkle shades. If that's what you're looking for, Makeup by Mario, like, they do have some options. Now we're on to Patrick Ta Still at the Club, the dark one. I really like this, and the day that I wore these, I did wear them all day. They wore really beautifully. I know I wanted to let y'all know how the wear time was. But starting at my elbow, we're going with Odin's Eye James. Isn't that a pretty shadow? Like, it's so pretty. Sorry, I just have to say that. I think Odin's Eye is making beautiful shadows. Elf in the shade Pop Off Pink. This one is really, really beautiful too. Again, let me know if you want a video on these, because I do think this is pretty. It's a lot more hard pressed, of course, than the Patrick Ta, but also it's at a fraction of the cost. So what are you gonna do? Next, I'm gonna talk about Adept Vivette. I know this palette has 2 high pearl finishes, pure pearl, whatever you want to say, but it's there, and I have a whole video on this palette. This is actually a new release from the brand. If you want to check that out, absolutely love Adept. Then we're going into the 2 Still at the Club shades. The Moira Single Shadow in the shade How Charming. I think this one's beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Again, totally underrated is Moira. And then I have 2 shades from the Isamaya Industrial palette. I just, you know, Industrial 2.0, I believe. Yeah, the silver one. Absolutely beautiful. These are not all like shade dupes, just wanting to pull similar things so you can see the finish. Yes, you can see the shades. You can see it all. I would really love to hear from you and what you think of these duos. If you're planning to pick them up, if you're not planning to pick them up, I know with the Sephora sale, and you could get them 20% off. Maybe Patrick Ta will even have a Black Friday sale on his own website to where he's offering 20% or more than 20%. I think these are beautiful. I don't regret my purchase. I love reviewing makeup. I love testing new makeup. Even before I had a YouTube channel, I was buying way too much makeup, like whatever that is. You know me, I'm a more is more type of person. So if I want to try it, like, I just love the experience of trying things, seeing what's out there. I love being able to come here, sit down with y'all and tell y'all, like, this is what it is. You don't have to buy it. This is what I think of it. Here's my review. Give you some options, give you some comparisons. So I don't regret my purchase, but I also think there's no need. We don't need makeup. My soul needs makeup. Like, my mental health needs makeup. But, you know, I want you to know that you're not just missing out. If you're seeing these shadows and you're thinking, I don't want to spend 24, good grief, I wish they were 24. If you're just thinking, I don't want to spend $42 on a duo, am I really just missing out? No. I hope my options provided you with that. I'm happy I bought them. We don't need them. And if you're looking at these saying, we're not buying it, I'm not buying it, I got it. I do hope that brands will not follow suit, that we won't see every brand coming out with duos at this price point, because I do think it's so expensive. But I would love to know, do you find the eye swatches helpful? Do you find the comparisons and the swatches helpful? I hope you really enjoyed it. Did you pick these up? Are you interested in any of the options that I showed you? I always love hearing from you. Thank you so much for watching. Check out some of my other videos because I love sparkly shadow.